In the vastness of space, one small blue planet sits exactly 93 million miles from its star, spinning at precisely the right speed to keep half from freezing and half from burning. This world has a moon exactly the right size to pull its oceans into gentle tides, an atmosphere mixed with exactly 21% oxygen, and a magnetic field that blocks deadly radiation like an invisible shield. Today, we journey through the most incredible coincidences in the universe. We will visit the precise forces that keep your feet on the ground, explore the perfect storms that created your DNA, and discover why you are breathing the only air mixture in the known cosmos that keeps you alive. If you are ready to question everything you thought you knew about your place in the universe, hit that like button and subscribe for more mind-bending space documentaries. Prepare yourselves. We begin. Picture standing on Mercury, where the ground beneath your feet reaches 800 degrees Fahrenheit and could melt zinc in seconds. Now imagine standing on Mars, where the temperature drops to -200 degrees and your breath would freeze solid before leaving your lungs. Between these two worlds of fire and ice sits one planet at exactly the right distance from our star, not too hot, not too cold, but just right for liquid water to exist on the surface. We call this narrow band around every star the habitable zone, but scientists prefer a more playful name, the Goldilocks zone. Just like the fairy tale character who found the perfect bowl of porridge, Earth sits in the cosmic sweet spot, where everything is just right for life. But here is what makes this incredible. Move Earth just 5% closer to the sun, and our oceans boil away into space, like water in a kettle. Move us 5% farther out, and those same oceans freeze solid, turning our blue marble into a white ice ball spinning in the dark. We exist in a band of space that represents less than 3% of our solar system's total width. Think of it like walking a tightrope stretched across the Grand Canyon. One step too far in either direction, and you fall. Earth has been walking that tightrope for over 4 billion years without a single misstep. The numbers become even more staggering when you realize how this distance was set. When our solar system formed from a spinning cloud of gas and dust, countless random factors determined where each planet would end up. The speed of the original cloud, the density of different regions, the gravitational tugs from passing stars, even the exact timing of when our sun first ignited. All of these variables had to align perfectly to place Earth in this narrow zone. Venus, our neighboring world, missed the target by just 25 million miles. That small difference turned it into a hellscape, where sulfuric acid rains down from clouds and the surface pressure could crush a submarine. Mars missed by a similar distance in the other direction and became a frozen desert where no liquid water has flowed for billions of years. Yet somehow, out of all the possible distances Earth could have formed, it landed exactly where complex chemistry could flourish, where water could cycle between ice, liquid, and vapor, where temperatures stayed stable enough for delicate molecules to build themselves into the first living cells. The odds of this happening by pure chance have been calculated by astronomers. They are so small that you would need to write down a number with more zeros than there are atoms in the observable universe. Some scientists call this the first great coincidence that made life possible. But compared to what comes next, this perfect distance from our star looks like the easiest part of the puzzle. Hanging in our night sky is a companion so perfectly sized and positioned that it has shaped every day of life on Earth since the beginning. Our moon sits 239,000 miles away, exactly the right distance to appear almost identical in size to our sun during solar eclipses. This cosmic coincidence allows us to study the sun's corona and has helped scientists understand how stars work. But this celestial geometry represents just the beginning of the moon's perfect design for life. Every 6 hours, you can watch the moon pull our oceans back and forth across coastlines in a rhythm that has never stopped for 4 billion years. These tides do far more than create beautiful beaches and tide pools. They mix nutrients through ocean water, keeping it rich with the chemicals life needs to survive. Without tidal mixing, our seas would become stagnant layers of salt water where nothing could live. The moon's gravitational pull also acts like a cosmic metronome, keeping Earth spinning at a steady rate. Mars, which has 2 tiny moons with almost no gravitational influence, wobbles wildly on its axis. Sometimes its poles point directly at the sun, creating temperature swings of hundreds of degrees that would sterilize any life trying to evolve there. But Earth's large moon keeps our planet's tilt locked at 23.5 degrees, creating the gentle seasons that have allowed life to spread across the globe. Remove the moon tomorrow, and Earth would begin tumbling chaotically through space like a broken gyroscope. Here is the astonishing part. Scientists have calculated that a moon needs to be exactly the right size relative to its planet to create stable tides and rotation. Too small, like the moons of Mars, and it has no influence. Too large, and it creates tidal forces so strong they would crack the planet's surface and boil away its oceans. Our moon represents exactly 1/4 of Earth's size, a ratio found nowhere else in our solar system. Jupiter's moons are tiny compared to the giant planet. Even Pluto's largest moon, Charon, is only half the size ratio of our moon to Earth. The way our moon formed makes this precision even more incredible. 4.5 billion years ago, a Mars-sized object called Theia smashed into the early Earth at exactly the right angle and speed. Hit too directly, and both worlds would have been destroyed. Hit at too shallow an angle, and Theia would have bounced off into space. Instead, the collision blasted exactly the right amount of material into orbit to form a moon of perfect size and distance. The chances of this happening have been compared to throwing a dart from space and hitting a bullseye on Earth. Tonight, when you look up at that familiar silver disk, remember that you are seeing the second great coincidence that made your existence possible. Farther out in space, an even larger guardian watches over our world. 2.5 times farther from the Sun than Earth, orbits a giant so massive it could swallow our entire world like a marble disappearing into a basketball. Jupiter weighs more than twice as much as all other planets in our solar system combined. This enormous mass creates a gravitational field so powerful that it has spent billions of years acting as our solar system's cosmic vacuum cleaner, sweeping up asteroids and comets that would otherwise slam into Earth with devastating force. Every few years, astronomers watch Jupiter capture another wandering rock from deep space. In 1994, they witnessed something extraordinary when comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 broke apart and crashed into Jupiter's atmosphere. The impact created explosions larger than Earth itself, releasing more energy than every nuclear weapon ever built going off at once. That comet was heading toward the inner solar system, possibly toward our world. Jupiter's gravity caught it first, saving Earth from an impact that could have ended civilization. This protective action happens constantly on a smaller scale, with Jupiter deflecting countless asteroids that would otherwise rain down on our planet. But Jupiter's influence goes far beyond just catching space rocks. Its massive gravitational field has helped sculpt the entire architecture of our solar system, keeping smaller planets in stable orbits and preventing them from crashing into each other. Computer simulations show that without Jupiter's gravitational influence, Earth's orbit would gradually decay, sending us spiraling into the Sun over millions of years. The giant planet also sits at exactly the right distance to provide maximum protection without disrupting Earth's orbit. Move Jupiter closer to the Sun, and its gravity would fling Earth out into the cold depths of space. Move it farther away, and it could not shield us from the asteroid belt that lies between Mars and Jupiter. That asteroid belt contains millions of rocks, some larger than mountains, all orbiting the Sun in a cosmic shooting gallery. Without Jupiter's gravitational shepherding, these asteroids would eventually spread throughout the inner solar system, turning Earth into a target in a deadly game of cosmic billiards. Scientists have discovered that most star systems in our galaxy do not have a giant planet positioned like Jupiter. Instead, they contain massive worlds called hot Jupiters that orbit extremely close to their stars, creating gravitational chaos that would fling Earth-like planets into deep space or into their sun. Our Jupiter formed at exactly the right distance and stayed there for 4.5 billion years, never migrating inward like most giant planets do. This stability has allowed life on Earth to evolve without facing constant extinction-level impacts from space. The timing of Jupiter's formation also appears perfectly coordinated with Earth's development. The giant planet finished forming just as the early bombardment of asteroids and comets was ending, providing protection exactly when Earth needed it most to develop its first oceans and atmosphere. Standing guard beyond Jupiter, this cosmic protector represents the third great coincidence in our perfectly designed solar system. Yet even with this massive guardian watching over us, Earth still faces deadly radiation from space that could sterilize all life in minutes. Streaming toward Earth at over 1 million miles per hour comes a wind of charged particles so deadly it could strip away our atmosphere and turn our planet into a barren rock like Mars. This solar wind carries enough energy to power human civilization for millions of years, but it would kill every living thing on Earth's surface in minutes if it reached the ground. The only reason you can step outside without being fried by radiation is because our planet generates an invisible magnetic field that deflects these particles into space like an enormous force field. Deep beneath your feet, 1,500 miles below the surface, liquid iron churns and flows in Earth's outer core at temperatures hotter than the sun's surface. This molten metal moves in complex patterns, driven by Earth's rotation, creating electrical currents that generate a magnetic field extending 60,000 miles into space. This magnetic bubble, called the magnetosphere, surrounds our entire planet and channels deadly solar particles away from Earth's surface. When these particles hit our magnetic field, they create the aurora borealis and aurora australis, painting the polar skies with curtains of green and blue light. These beautiful displays are actually Earth's magnetic field, wrestling with solar radiation and winning. Mars once had a magnetic field like Earth's, but its smaller size meant the planet's core cooled and solidified billions of years ago. Without a molten core to drive electrical currents, Mars lost its magnetic protection. The solar wind then slowly stripped away most of the Martian atmosphere, leaving behind the thin, cold air that makes Mars uninhabitable today. Venus also lacks a protective magnetic field, and despite its thick atmosphere, the planet's surface is bombarded by radiation levels that would be lethal to any Earth-based life. Only Earth maintains the perfect balance of planetary size, core composition, and rotation speed needed to sustain a magnetic field for billions of years. The strength of our magnetic field is precisely calibrated for life. Too weak, and solar radiation would gradually erode our atmosphere like it did on Mars. Too strong, and the field would trap so much solar energy that it would superheat our upper atmosphere and cook the planet's surface. Scientists have calculated that Earth's magnetic field strength has remained remarkably stable throughout the planet's history, fluctuating by less than 20%, even during magnetic pole reversals when the field temporarily weakens. This stability has provided consistent protection for life during its entire 4 billion-year evolution on Earth. The magnetic field also protects the delicate chemistry that creates life. DNA and other complex molecules break apart when exposed to high-energy radiation from space. Without our magnetic shield, the building blocks of life would be destroyed faster than they could form, preventing evolution from ever beginning. Recent space missions have confirmed that Earth's magnetic field extends its protection far beyond our planet's surface, creating a safe zone in space that allowed the Moon to retain some of its original atmosphere for millions of years after its formation. This invisible shield represents the fourth great coincidence that makes Earth habitable, but it only protects us from external threats. The air you breathe right now contains an even more precisely designed mixture of gases. Take a deep breath and consider that you are inhaling a mixture of gases so precisely balanced that changing any component by just a few percentage points would make Earth uninhabitable. Our atmosphere contains exactly 21% oxygen, 78% nitrogen, and trace amounts of argon, carbon dioxide, and other gases. This specific combination represents the only known air mixture in the universe that can support complex life like yours. Increase oxygen to 25%, and every spark would trigger massive fires that could burn entire continents. The extra oxygen would make organic materials so flammable that lightning strikes would ignite global infernos, preventing forests and grasslands from ever establishing. Reduce oxygen to 16%, and you could not get enough into your bloodstream to power your brain and muscles. You would slowly suffocate, even while breathing normally. Nitrogen makes up most of our atmosphere, but its role goes far beyond just diluting oxygen to safe levels. Nitrogen creates atmospheric pressure that keeps liquid water stable on Earth's surface. Without enough nitrogen, water would boil away into space. With too much nitrogen, the pressure would become so great that water could not evaporate, preventing the water cycle that distributes moisture around the globe. The trace amounts of carbon dioxide in our air, currently around 400 parts per million, create just enough greenhouse warming to keep Earth's average temperature above freezing. Double this amount, and runaway greenhouse heating would turn Earth into a copy of Venus. Cut it in half, and ice would cover the planet from pole to pole, reflecting so much sunlight that Earth would freeze permanently. Argon, making up less than 1% of our atmosphere, plays a crucial role in protecting nitrogen from being stripped away by solar radiation. Without argon's chemical stability, nitrogen would gradually break apart and escape to space, leaving Earth with an atmosphere too thin to support life. Even water vapor, which varies from nearly 0 to 4% depending on location and weather, is perfectly balanced. Too much water vapor would create a runaway greenhouse effect, while too little would prevent clouds from forming to regulate Earth's temperature. This atmospheric mixture took billions of years to reach its current balance through an incredibly complex process. Early Earth had an atmosphere of methane and ammonia that would have been instantly lethal to modern life. Gradually, photosynthetic bacteria began producing oxygen as a waste product, slowly changing the air composition over 2 billion years. The transition from an oxygen-free to oxygen-rich atmosphere represents one of the most dramatic chemical changes in Earth's history. During this great oxidation event, oxygen levels rose so dramatically that they poisoned most existing life forms, clearing the way for oxygen-breathing organisms to evolve. Remarkably, oxygen levels stabilized at exactly 21% and have remained there for hundreds of millions of years, despite constant biological and geological processes that should have changed the mixture. This stability suggests a planetary feedback system that automatically adjusts gas concentrations to maintain habitability. The atmosphere also provides exactly the right amount of protection from harmful ultraviolet radiation, while allowing visible light to reach the surface. This optical window makes photosynthesis possible while protecting DNA from radiation damage. Breathing this perfect air mixture, you depend on the fifth great coincidence that makes life possible. But the most miraculous substance on Earth is not the air you breathe. Every drop of water in your body defies the basic laws of chemistry in ways that make life possible. Water should be a gas at Earth's temperatures. When chemists compare its molecular weight and structure to similar compounds like hydrogen sulfide, all the equations predict that water should boil at -100 degrees Fahrenheit and exist only as vapor in our atmosphere. Instead, water remains liquid across the exact temperature range where life can survive. This impossible behavior happens because water molecules stick together through hydrogen bonds, weak electrical connections that form and break billions of times per second. These bonds give water properties found nowhere else in the known universe. Water expands when it freezes, making ice float instead of sinking. If ice behaved like every other solid, and sank to the bottom of lakes and oceans, Earth's water would freeze solid from the bottom up, creating a planet-wide ice cube that would never melt. Floating ice creates an insulating layer that keeps water liquid underneath, allowing life to survive even during ice ages. Fish, algae, and countless other organisms live in the liquid water beneath frozen surfaces, maintaining Earth's biological cycles even when temperatures drop far below freezing. Water also holds more heat than almost any other substance, making it a perfect temperature regulator for living things. Your body is 60% water, partly because water's heat capacity keeps your internal temperature stable even when the environment around you changes dramatically. Oceans store vast amounts of heat from the sun and release it slowly, moderating Earth's climate and preventing extreme temperature swings that would kill most life forms. The chemical properties of water are equally extraordinary. Water dissolves more substances than any other liquid, earning it the nickname the universal solvent. This means water can carry nutrients, minerals, and waste products throughout living organisms and transport chemicals between different parts of Earth's systems. Blood, tree sap, and the fluid inside every living cell are all water-based solutions that move materials where they need to go. Water molecules also form the perfect scaffolding for complex biological molecules. DNA, proteins, and other essential components of life fold into their functional shapes because of how they interact with surrounding water. Change water's properties even slightly, and these molecules would unfold and stop working, making life impossible. The amount of water on Earth is precisely calibrated for life. Cover the planet with twice as much water, and no land would exist above sea level for life to colonize. Have half as much water, and most of the continents would be uninhabitable deserts with no rivers or lakes to support ecosystems. Water's surface tension creates another life-enabling property. This invisible force allows water to climb up plant stems through microscopic tubes, delivering nutrients from roots to leaves hundreds of feet above the ground. Without surface tension, trees could not exist, and land-based ecosystems would be impossible. Even the way water moves through Earth's systems seems designed for life. The water cycle evaporates water from oceans, purifies it in clouds, and delivers fresh water to land through precipitation. This global distillation system has been operating for billions of years, constantly recycling and cleaning the water that life depends on. Water represents the sixth great coincidence that makes your existence possible. But this magical substance only works because Earth spins at exactly the right speed. Earth completes one rotation every 24 hours, a speed so precisely calibrated that changing it by just a few hours would make our planet uninhabitable. Imagine if Earth spun twice as fast, completing each rotation in 12 hours instead of 24. The faster rotation would create winds over 300 miles per hour that would level every building and uproot every tree. These hurricane-force winds would blow constantly across the entire planet, making it impossible for life to establish itself on land. Even in the oceans, the violent churning would prevent delicate organisms from surviving. Now picture Earth spinning half as slow, with each day lasting 48 hours instead of 24. The longer days would allow the sun to bake one side of the planet to over 200 degrees Fahrenheit, while the night side froze to negative 150 degrees. These extreme temperatures would create massive atmospheric circulation patterns, generating storms so powerful they would make hurricanes look like gentle breezes. Our current 24-hour rotation creates the perfect balance between day and night, allowing the sun to warm Earth's surface without overheating it, then giving the planet time to cool without freezing. This rhythm has remained remarkably stable for billions of years, even though the moon's gravitational pull gradually slows Earth's rotation by about 1 second every 50,000 years. The consistent day-night cycle has shaped every aspect of life on Earth. Plants photosynthesize during the day and process nutrients at night. Animals sleep and wake in patterns synchronized with Earth's rotation. Even the chemistry inside your cells follows circadian rhythms that match our planet's 24-hour spin. Earth's rotation speed also creates the Coriolis effect, which drives weather patterns and ocean currents that distribute heat around the globe. Without this effect, hot air from the equator would never reach the poles, and cold polar air would never cool the tropics. The result would be a planet with uninhabitably hot equatorial regions and permanently frozen polar zones. The rotation also generates Earth's magnetic field by stirring the molten iron in our planet's core. A slower rotation would weaken this magnetic protection, allowing deadly solar radiation to strip away our atmosphere. A faster rotation might create such a strong magnetic field that it would trap excessive amounts of solar energy and overheat the planet. Mars rotates at almost exactly the same speed as Earth, with days lasting 24 hours and 37 minutes. However, Mars lacks Earth's large moon to stabilize its rotation, so the planet's spin axis wobbles dramatically over thousands of years. This instability creates extreme climate changes that prevent life from establishing permanent ecosystems. Venus rotates so slowly that each day lasts 243 Earth days, longer than a Venusian year. This slow rotation allows the Sun to heat one side of Venus for months at a time, contributing to the planet's hellish surface temperatures of over 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Jupiter and the other gas giants spin much faster than Earth, with Jupiter completing one rotation in less than 10 hours. This rapid spinning creates such violent atmospheric dynamics that no solid surface could exist where life might develop. Earth's rotation speed represents the seventh great coincidence that enables life. But our planet's spin axis tilts at an angle that creates even more perfect conditions. Earth tilts on its axis at exactly 23.5 degrees, creating the gentle seasons that have allowed life to flourish across the entire planet for billions of years. Without any tilt, Earth would have no seasons at all. The equator would remain blazingly hot year-round, while the poles stayed permanently frozen, creating extreme climate zones that would limit life to a narrow band around the planet's middle. Most of Earth's surface would be either too hot or too cold for complex organisms to survive. Increase the tilt to 45 degrees, and seasons would become so extreme that they would sterilize most of the planet. During summer, the tilted hemisphere would receive direct sunlight for months, heating the surface to temperatures that would boil water. During winter, the same regions would plunge into darkness so deep and cold that even the oceans would begin to freeze solid. Mars tilts at 25 degrees, very close to Earth's angle, but lacks a large moon to keep this tilt stable. Over thousands of years, Mars wobbles between tilts of 15 and 35 degrees, creating dramatic climate changes that prevent stable conditions for life. Sometimes, the Martian poles receive so much direct sunlight that frozen carbon dioxide sublimates into the atmosphere, thickening it temporarily. Other times, the poles receive so little light that most of the atmosphere freezes solid at the polar caps. Earth's 23.5 degree tilt creates the perfect balance. Summer brings warm weather that melts winter snow and ice, providing fresh water for plants and animals. Winter temperatures drop enough to freeze harmful bacteria and pests, preventing them from overrunning ecosystems. Spring and fall provide transition periods that allow life to adjust gradually to changing conditions. This tilt also drives the seasonal migration patterns that have shaped evolution for millions of years. Birds follow seasonal changes in food availability, fish move between warm and cold waters, and even trees shed their leaves in autumn to survive winter cold. These seasonal rhythms have created complex ecosystems where different species depend on each other's seasonal behaviors. The tilt creates seasonal changes in daylight hours that vary from 0 at the equator to 24 hours at the poles. This gradient allows different types of life to thrive at different latitudes. Tropical regions near the equator remain warm year-round and support incredible biodiversity. Polar regions experience dramatic seasonal changes that favor specially adapted organisms. Ocean currents also depend on seasonal temperature changes driven by Earth's tilt. Cold winter water sinks and flows toward the equator, while warm summer water rises and flows toward the poles, creating a global circulation system that distributes nutrients throughout the oceans and regulates planetary temperature. The agricultural cycles that allowed human civilization to develop depend entirely on seasonal changes. Farmers plant crops in spring when temperatures warm and days grow longer, then harvest in fall before winter arrives. Without predictable seasons, agriculture would be impossible, and human societies could never have grown beyond small hunter-gatherer groups. Even the chemical cycles that maintain Earth's atmosphere depend on seasonal changes. Plants absorb more carbon dioxide during spring and summer growing seasons, then release it during fall and winter. This seasonal breathing of the biosphere helps regulate atmospheric composition and climate. Earth's perfect tilt represents the eighth great coincidence that makes complex life possible, but our planet's location in the galaxy provides even broader protection. Earth orbits the Sun in the quiet suburbs of the Milky Way galaxy, exactly where life can survive the cosmic dangers that would sterilize planets closer to the galactic center. Our solar system sits 26,000 light-years from the galaxy's center in a region astronomers call the Galactic Habitable Zone. Move us half that distance closer to the galactic core, and deadly radiation from the supermassive black hole at the galaxy's heart would strip away Earth's atmosphere and cook the planet's surface. Venture twice as far from the center, and our region of space would lack the heavy elements like carbon, oxygen, and iron that life requires. Near the galactic center, stars pack together so densely that gravitational interactions would constantly disrupt planetary orbits, flinging worlds out of their habitable zones or into their parent stars. Massive stars in the galactic core burn through their fuel in just millions of years before exploding as supernovas, creating waves of radiation that would sterilize any nearby planets trying to develop life. The galactic center also harbors a black hole containing 4 million times the mass of our Sun. This monster occasionally devours nearby stars and gas clouds, releasing bursts of X-rays and gamma rays, powerful enough to destroy ozone layers on planets hundreds of light-years away. Earth's distance from this cosmic furnace keeps us safely outside the radiation danger zone. Our solar system also travels through the galaxy at exactly the right speed to avoid most hazards. We orbit the galactic center once every 230 million years, moving just fast enough to stay ahead of the spiral arms where most supernovas occur. When our solar system does pass through spiral arms, we do so quickly enough to minimize exposure to dangerous radiation from exploding stars. The Milky Way's spiral arms contain massive star-forming regions where young, unstable stars frequently explode. These stellar nurseries are beautiful when viewed from a safe distance, but they would be deadly to any nearby planets. Earth's orbital path takes us through spiral arms only briefly, spending most of our galactic year in the quieter regions between arms. Our local neighborhood of space, called the local bubble, provides additional protection. This region was carved out by ancient supernova explosions that cleared away much of the interstellar gas and dust that could interfere with planetary development. The bubble's low density reduces the chance of our solar system encountering rogue asteroids or comets from deep space. The Sun's position in the galaxy also places us in a zone with just the right abundance of heavy elements. Closer to the galactic center, frequent supernova explosions have enriched space with metals, but the radiation environment is too harsh for life. Farther from the center, there are not enough heavy elements to form rocky planets and complex molecules. Even our galaxy's size and type contribute to Earth's habitability. The Milky Way is large enough to generate heavy elements through stellar nucleosynthesis, but not so large that its core becomes too active and dangerous. Smaller galaxies lack sufficient heavy elements for planet formation, while larger galaxies often have overly active cores that sterilize their star systems. The galaxy's relatively stable structure has allowed our solar system to maintain a safe orbit for billions of years. Unlike galaxies that are merging or being disrupted by close encounters, the Milky Way provides a stable gravitational environment where planetary systems can develop and maintain habitable conditions. Our safe galactic location represents the ninth great coincidence enabling life, but the fundamental forces of physics themselves appear fine-tuned for our existence. The universe operates according to fundamental constants that appear fine-tuned to an impossible degree, as if someone adjusted cosmic dials to the exact settings needed for matter, energy, and life to exist. Gravity holds you to Earth's surface with precisely the right strength to allow stars and planets to form without crushing atoms or letting matter fly apart into emptiness. Increase gravity's strength by just 1 part in 10, followed by 36 zeros, and stars would burn out in millions of years instead of billions, never giving life time to evolve. Decrease it by the same tiny amount, and gravity would be too weak to pull gas clouds together to form stars at all. The strong nuclear force binds protons and neutrons together in atomic nuclei with exactly the right strength to create the periodic table of elements. Make this force slightly weaker, and atomic nuclei would fall apart, leaving the universe with nothing but hydrogen. Make it slightly stronger, and all hydrogen would fuse into heavier elements, leaving no fuel for stars to burn and no water for life to use. The electromagnetic force governs how electrons orbit atomic nuclei and how atoms bond together to form molecules. Change its strength by more than 4% in either direction, and carbon atoms could not form the complex molecules that build living things. Chemistry as we know it would be impossible, replaced by a universe of simple gases that could never organize into life. The weak nuclear force controls radioactive decay and the nuclear reactions that power stars. Without this force calibrated to exactly the right strength, stars could not convert hydrogen into the heavier elements that planets and life require. The sun would either burn too hot and fast or too cold and slow to maintain liquid water on Earth for billions of years. The expansion rate of the universe itself appears perfectly tuned for structure formation. Expand too fast, and matter would spread too thin for gravity to pull it together into galaxies and stars. Expand too slow, and the universe would collapse back on itself before stars could form and create heavy elements. The mass difference between protons and neutrons is so precisely calibrated that changing it by less than 1 part in 1,000 would make stable atoms impossible. Protons and neutrons would either decay too quickly to form nuclei or combine in ways that would make chemistry impossible. Even the number of dimensions in space appears fine-tuned for life. In a universe with 2 spatial dimensions, complex structures could not exist because moving parts would have no way to pass by each other. In 4 or more dimensions, gravity and electromagnetism would behave so differently that stable orbits and atoms would be impossible. The ratio of matter to antimatter in the early universe was calibrated to leave just enough matter for galaxies and stars after most particles annihilated each other. Change this ratio by even 1 part in 1,000,000,000, and either too little matter would remain to form structures, or so much antimatter would remain that it would destroy everything. Cosmologists have calculated that the fundamental constants of nature must fall within incredibly narrow ranges for a universe capable of supporting life. The odds of this happening by random chance are so small that you would need more universes than there are atoms in our observable cosmos to expect it to occur even once. Some scientists propose that our universe is just one of countless others in a vast multiverse, and we exist in the rare universe where the constants happen to allow life. Others suggest that the constants themselves might be consequences of deeper physical laws that require them to have life-permitting values. These perfectly calibrated cosmic settings represent the 10th great coincidence that makes existence possible, but gravity itself deserves closer examination. Gravity shapes every structure in the universe with a force so precisely calibrated that changing it by even the tiniest fraction would make stars, planets, and life impossible. Picture gravity twice as strong as it actually is. Stars would collapse under their own weight and burn through their nuclear fuel in millions of years instead of billions, exploding as supernovas before life could evolve on any nearby planets. The increased gravitational pull would also crush any rocky planets into dense balls of metal, preventing the formation of atmospheres and oceans where life could begin. Now, imagine gravity half as strong. Gas clouds in space would never collapse enough to ignite nuclear fusion, leaving the universe dark and cold, with no stars to provide energy for life. Without sufficient gravitational pull, planets could not hold onto their atmospheres, and any water would boil away into space. Our universe has gravity calibrated to exactly the right strength to allow stars to burn steadily for billions of years while maintaining stable planetary orbits. This perfect balance enables stellar nucleosynthesis, the process by which stars forge heavy elements like carbon, oxygen, and iron in their cores over millions of years. Gravity also determines the maximum size of planets that can support life. Too much gravity and the atmospheric pressure becomes so great that water cannot exist as a liquid. Too little gravity and atmospheres escape into space, leaving planets airless and lifeless, like most moons in our solar system. The gravitational constant appears to be the same everywhere in the universe and at all times since the Big Bang. This uniformity allows the same physical processes that created Earth to operate throughout the cosmos, suggesting that life might be possible wherever conditions are right. Gravity creates the tidal forces that have shaped Earth's evolution in countless ways. The moon's gravitational pull creates ocean tides that provided tidal pools where early life may have first made the transition from sea to land. These same tidal forces gradually slow Earth's rotation, helping to stabilize our planet's climate over geological timescales. The strength of gravity also determines how fast objects fall, which affects everything from weather patterns to the ability of flying creatures to evolve. Birds and insects can fly because gravity is weak enough to allow lift, but strong enough to provide the resistance needed for controlled flight. Gravity's influence extends to the largest scales in the universe, holding together galaxy clusters containing hundreds of billions of stars, while allowing individual solar systems to maintain stable orbits within those galaxies. This hierarchical structure creates calm regions where planetary systems can exist for billions of years without gravitational disruption. The precise strength of gravity also enables the formation of black holes at the end of massive stars' lives. These cosmic recycling centers help distribute heavy elements throughout space when they eventually evaporate through Hawking radiation, seeding future generations of stars and planets with the materials needed for life. Even the formation of Earth itself depended on gravity being exactly the right strength to allow planetesimals to stick together through gentle collisions rather than shattering apart or being pulled into the sun. This delicate process built our planet layer by layer over millions of years. Gravity represents the 11th great coincidence that enables existence, working in perfect harmony with nuclear forces that create the elements life requires. Deep inside every star, nuclear forces work with clockwork precision to forge the elements that make your body possible, operating at exactly the right strengths to create carbon, oxygen, and every other atom essential for life. The strong nuclear force holds protons and neutrons together in atomic nuclei, despite the electromagnetic force trying to push positively charged protons apart. This cosmic tug-of-war is calibrated so precisely that changing the strong force by just 2% would make carbon atoms impossible to create. Inside massive stars, hydrogen nuclei fuse together at temperatures of 100 million degrees, building heavier elements step by step. First, hydrogen combines to make helium. Then, helium fuses to create beryllium, which immediately decays unless it captures another helium nucleus in the tiny fraction of a second before it disappears. This creates carbon through a process so unlikely that astronomers initially thought it was impossible. The nuclear resonance that allows carbon formation was predicted by astronomer Fred Hoyle before it was discovered in laboratories. Hoyle calculated that carbon production required a very specific energy level in the carbon nucleus, and when physicists looked for it, they found this energy level exactly where Hoyle said it would be. This resonance makes carbon abundant enough to form the backbone of all biological molecules. The nuclear forces also create oxygen through a process that depends on another precisely calibrated resonance. Make the strong nuclear force slightly stronger, and carbon would burn too easily into oxygen, leaving no carbon for life. Make it slightly weaker, and oxygen could not form at all, leaving the universe with no way to create water or the oxidation reactions that power complex life. Iron represents the end point of stellar nucleosynthesis because its nucleus is so stable that fusing it requires more energy than it releases. This perfect balance means that stars can burn steadily for billions of years before running out of nuclear fuel, providing the long-term energy sources that life needs to evolve. When massive stars finally exhaust their nuclear fuel, they explode as supernovas, scattering the heavy elements they created throughout space. These stellar explosions are powerful enough to forge elements heavier than iron, including many trace elements that life requires. The nuclear forces are calibrated so that supernovas produce exactly the right mixture of elements for rocky planets and biological chemistry. The weak nuclear force controls the radioactive decay that helps heat Earth's interior and drive plate tectonics. Without this internal heat source, our planet would be a frozen ball with no geological activity to recycle carbon and other elements between the atmosphere and Earth's interior. Radioactive decay also provides the long-term energy that powers the decay chains producing elements like uranium and thorium. These elements concentrate in Earth's crust and mantle, where their radioactive heating helps maintain the molten core that generates our protective magnetic field. The nuclear forces even determine which elements are stable enough to exist for billions of years versus those that decay quickly into other elements. This selective stability creates a periodic table with exactly the right mix of long-lived and short-lived elements to support complex chemistry while providing energy sources for geological and biological processes. The precise calibration of nuclear forces has created a universe where stars can forge heavy elements over billions of years, distribute them through supernova explosions, and concentrate them in rocky planets where they can form the complex molecules of life. These perfectly tuned nuclear forces represent the 12th great coincidence enabling existence, but one element stands above all others in its importance for life. Carbon atoms possess a unique ability to bond with themselves and other elements in ways that make the complex chemistry of life possible, creating molecular structures found nowhere else in the universe. Each carbon atom can form 4 strong chemical bonds, allowing it to connect with other carbon atoms in chains, rings, and 3-dimensional networks of almost unlimited size and complexity. No other element shares this versatility. Silicon, carbon's closest chemical relative, can only form long chains in artificial laboratory conditions, and these silicon chains break apart when exposed to water or oxygen. Carbon's bonding ability allows it to create millions of different molecules from just a few types of atoms. Combine carbon with hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur, and you can build DNA, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and every other molecule that makes life work. These biological molecules contain thousands of atoms arranged in precise 3-dimensional shapes that determine their functions. The chemistry of carbon works perfectly in water, forming stable bonds that resist breaking apart randomly while remaining flexible enough to change when needed. This balance allows biological molecules to maintain their shapes long enough to perform their functions while still being able to react and evolve over time. Carbon forms the backbone of DNA, the molecule that stores genetic information in every living thing. The double helix structure of DNA depends on carbon atoms forming a sugar phosphate backbone that gives the molecule its stability while allowing the genetic code to be read and copied. Change DNA's carbon framework, and genetic information could not be stored reliably across generations. Proteins, the molecular machines that perform most biological functions, fold into complex three-dimensional shapes determined by their carbon-based amino acid building blocks. These shapes allow proteins to catalyze chemical reactions, transport materials, provide structural support, and carry out thousands of other tasks that keep life functioning. Carbon also forms the energy storage molecules that power all biological processes. Fats and carbohydrates store chemical energy in carbon-hydrogen bonds that can be broken to release power when organisms need it. This energy storage system allows life to survive periods when external energy sources are not available. The carbon cycle connects all life on Earth through the movement of carbon atoms between the atmosphere, oceans, and living organisms. Plants capture carbon dioxide from the air and use it to build biological molecules through photosynthesis. Animals eat plants and return carbon to the atmosphere through respiration. This cycling has continued for billions of years, maintaining the carbon supply that life requires. Carbon's chemistry also enables the formation of complex organic molecules in space. Astronomers have discovered amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, in meteorites and interstellar gas clouds. These space-based organic molecules suggest that the chemistry of life might begin even before planets form. The abundance of carbon in the universe results from the precise nuclear resonances that allow stars to create carbon through helium fusion. Without these carefully calibrated nuclear processes, carbon would be too rare to support the complex chemistry that life requires. Even the way carbon atoms absorb and emit light contributes to life's success. Carbon dioxide absorbs infrared radiation, creating the greenhouse effect that keeps Earth warm enough for liquid water. Carbon-based molecules in plants absorb visible light during photosynthesis, converting solar energy into chemical energy that powers most ecosystems. Carbon's unique properties represent the 13th great coincidence that makes complex life possible. But the origin of life itself required an even more improbable series of events. 4 billion years ago, in a warm tide pool on the early Earth, molecules began doing something that had never happened before in the history of the universe. They started making copies of themselves. The leap from simple chemistry to self-replicating life represents one of the most improbable events ever to occur. Scientists have calculated that the odds of random chemical reactions producing a molecule capable of copying itself are less than 1 in 10, followed by 40,000 zeros. To put this in perspective, there are only 10, followed by 80 zeros atoms in the entire observable universe. The first self-replicating molecule had to solve an impossible puzzle. It needed to be complex enough to carry information about how to build itself, yet simple enough to form spontaneously from the chemical soup of early Earth. This molecule also had to be stable enough to survive in harsh conditions, while remaining flexible enough to make copies and occasionally change through mutations. DNA, the molecule that stores genetic information in every living thing today, is far too complex to have formed spontaneously. Its double helix structure contains billions of precisely arranged chemical letters that spell out the instructions for building and operating living organisms. The probability of such a complex molecule assembling by chance is effectively zero. Scientists believe that life began with RNA, a simpler cousin of DNA that can both store information and catalyze chemical reactions. RNA molecules can fold into shapes that act like molecular machines, cutting and joining other RNA molecules to perform the basic functions of life. However, even the simplest RNA molecule capable of self-replication contains dozens of precisely arranged components. The RNA world hypothesis suggests that early Earth contained countless different RNA molecules, most of which did nothing useful. Through an incredibly unlikely combination of chance events, One RNA molecule developed the ability to make imperfect copies of itself. These copying errors, or mutations, occasionally produced RNA molecules that were better at surviving and reproducing than their parents. This molecular evolution required a delicate balance. Too many copying errors, and the genetic information would become scrambled nonsense. Too few errors, and life could never evolve beyond the first simple replicating molecule. The mutation rate had to be precisely calibrated to allow improvement while maintaining stable inheritance of genetic information. The transition from RNA to DNA required another series of improbable events. DNA is more stable than RNA and can store much more genetic information, but it cannot catalyze its own replication. Life had to evolve protein enzymes to copy DNA while maintaining the RNA machinery needed to build those proteins. This chicken and egg problem required an incredibly precise coordination of molecular evolution. The emergence of the genetic code represents another layer of improbability. The code that translates DNA sequences into protein structures is nearly universal among all life on Earth, suggesting it evolved very early and has remained unchanged for billions of years. This code is mathematically optimal for minimizing the effects of mutations, almost as if it were designed by an intelligence that understood information theory. The origin of self-replicating life represents the 14th great coincidence that led to your existence, but survival required navigating catastrophes that nearly erased life from Earth multiple times. Throughout Earth's history, massive extinction events have struck our planet with the precision of a cosmic sculptor, each catastrophe removing exactly the right species to allow more complex life to flourish. The most famous extinction occurred 66 million years ago, when an asteroid, 6 miles wide, slammed into Earth with the force of 10 billion atomic bombs. This impact wiped out the dinosaurs, but it also cleared ecological niches that allowed small mammals to diversify and eventually evolve into every mammalian species alive today, including humans. Without this perfectly timed catastrophe, dinosaurs would likely still dominate Earth's ecosystems. These successful reptiles had ruled the planet for over 160 million years and showed no signs of declining. Mammals remained small, nocturnal creatures living in the shadows of giant reptiles. The asteroid impact reset evolution's clock, giving mammals the opportunity to grow large and develop the complex brains that eventually led to human intelligence. The timing of this extinction was crucial. Too early, and mammals would not have evolved enough to take advantage of the empty ecological niches. Too late, and dinosaurs might have evolved intelligence first, creating a very different kind of civilization on Earth. The Great Dying, which occurred 250 million years ago, was even more devastating. This extinction eliminated 96% of all marine species and 70% of land vertebrates, nearly ending life on Earth entirely. Yet, this catastrophe cleared the way for dinosaurs to evolve from small reptilian ancestors, setting the stage for the later mammalian takeover. Each major extinction event has removed dominant life forms that were preventing other groups from diversifying. The Endordovian extinction eliminated many marine creatures that were dominating shallow seas, allowing fish to evolve and eventually colonize land. The late Devonian extinction cleared the way for early forests to spread across continents. These extinctions also accelerated evolutionary innovation by creating intense survival pressure. Species that survived mass extinctions often developed new capabilities that helped them thrive in the post-disaster world. The survivors of the end Permian extinction evolved more efficient respiratory systems, better temperature regulation, and improved sensory abilities. The causes of mass extinctions read like a catalogue of cosmic and planetary disasters perfectly timed to reshape life. Massive volcanic eruptions poisoned the atmosphere with toxic gases, while asteroid impacts threw dust clouds that blocked sunlight for years. Climate changes froze or overheated the planet, while ocean chemistry changes suffocated marine life. Yet somehow, life always recovered from these catastrophes and emerged more diverse and complex than before. Recovery typically took 5 to 10 million years, during which evolutionary innovation accelerated dramatically. New body plans, new ecological relationships, and new survival strategies emerged from each extinction bottleneck. The pattern suggests that mass extinctions serve as reset buttons for evolution, preventing any single group of organisms from permanently dominating Earth's ecosystems. Without periodic catastrophes, evolution might have stagnated with the first successful life forms, never progressing beyond simple bacteria and algae. Modern humans evolved during the most recent Ice Age, a period of repeated climate catastrophes that forced our ancestors to develop larger brains, better tools, and more sophisticated social cooperation. The environmental challenges of the Ice Age may have been necessary to push human evolution toward intelligence and technology. These perfectly timed catastrophes represent the 15th great coincidence in Earth's history, but one evolutionary innovation changed everything about how life operates on our planet. 3 billion years ago, tiny bacteria, floating in ancient oceans, began performing a chemical trick that would transform Earth from a lifeless rock into the vibrant biosphere you see today. These early cyanobacteria discovered how to capture energy directly from sunlight and use it to build organic molecules from carbon dioxide and water. This process, called photosynthesis, created a new source of energy that did not depend on the limited supply of chemicals available from volcanic vents and lightning strikes. Before photosynthesis, life survived on a starvation diet. Early organisms could only extract small amounts of energy from the chemicals dissolved in seawater or produced by underwater volcanic activity. This energy scarcity kept life simple and rare, limited to bacterial colonies clustered around chemical energy sources. Photosynthesis unlocked an energy source 10,000 times more abundant than anything life had previously accessed. Sunlight bathes Earth's surface with enough energy every hour to power human civilization for an entire year. Cyanobacteria learned to tap into this vast energy reservoir, creating the foundation for all complex life that followed. The chemical equation for photosynthesis looks deceptively simple. Carbon dioxide plus water plus sunlight creates sugar and oxygen. But this process required one of the most sophisticated molecular machines ever to evolve. The photosynthetic apparatus contains dozens of precisely arranged proteins and pigments that work together to capture light energy and convert it into chemical energy. The most remarkable part of photosynthesis is its ability to split water molecules, one of the most chemically stable compounds in the universe. Breaking apart water requires enormous amounts of energy, yet cyanobacteria learn to do this using nothing but sunlight. This water-splitting reaction produces oxygen as a waste product, beginning the transformation of Earth's atmosphere. For over 1 billion years, photosynthetic bacteria pumped oxygen into Earth's atmosphere while removing carbon dioxide. This great oxidation event poisoned most existing life forms, which had evolved in an oxygen-free environment where oxygen was as toxic as cyanide. The rising oxygen levels created the first global environmental crisis, killing off entire ecosystems of ancient bacteria. Yet this atmospheric transformation made complex life possible. Oxygen-breathing organisms can extract 20 times more energy from food than organisms that live without oxygen. This energy abundance allowed life to grow larger, move faster, and develop more sophisticated structures like eyes, brains, and complex nervous systems. Photosynthesis also created the ozone layer that protects Earth's surface from deadly ultraviolet radiation. Oxygen in the upper atmosphere breaks apart and reforms as ozone, creating a shield that allows life to leave the protective depths of the oceans and colonize land. The evolution of photosynthesis required an incredibly unlikely series of molecular innovations. The light harvesting complexes needed to evolve the ability to capture photons and transfer their energy without losing it to heat. The reaction centers had to develop the capacity to use light energy to drive chemical reactions that would normally require high temperatures. the water-splitting machinery had to evolve the ability to break apart one of nature's most stable molecules. Modern photosynthesis operates with nearly perfect efficiency, converting almost every captured photon into useful chemical energy. This optimization suggests billions of years of evolutionary refinement, yet the basic photosynthetic machinery appears to have evolved very early in Earth's history and remained essentially unchanged. The photosynthesis revolution represents the 16th great coincidence that enabled complex life. But this biological innovation only worked because Earth's geology provided the perfect stage for life to flourish. Beneath your feet, massive slabs of rock called tectonic plates drift across Earth's surface at the speed your fingernails grow, constantly recycling our planet's crust and maintaining conditions perfect for life. Plate tectonics operates like a planetary conveyor belt that has been running without interruption for over 3 billion years. New seafloor forms at underwater volcanic ridges where molten rock rises from Earth's interior. This new crust spreads outward, carrying continents along like passengers on a slow-moving raft. When oceanic plates collide with continental plates, the denser oceanic crust plunges back into Earth's interior, completing the recycling process. This geological recycling system regulates Earth's climate by controlling the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. When carbon dioxide levels rise, more rock weathering occurs as the gas dissolves in rainwater to form weak acids. This weathering pulls carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and locks it away in limestone and other sedimentary rocks. When carbon dioxide levels drop, reduced weathering allows volcanic emissions to gradually restore atmospheric carbon dioxide. Without plate tectonics, Earth would have become uninhabitable billions of years ago. Carbon dioxide would have accumulated in the atmosphere until runaway greenhouse heating turned Earth into a copy of Venus, with surface temperatures hot enough to melt lead. Alternatively, all carbon dioxide might have been locked away in rocks, creating a frozen planet with no greenhouse warming to keep water liquid. Venus and Mars both lack active plate tectonics, and both planets have become uninhabitable for opposite reasons. Venus has too much carbon dioxide in its atmosphere, creating surface temperatures of over 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Mars lost most of its carbon dioxide to space because it had no geological recycling system to replenish atmospheric gases. Plate tectonics also concentrates vital nutrients and minerals where life can access them. The collision of tectonic plates builds mountain ranges that expose fresh rock to weathering, releasing phosphorus, nitrogen, and other elements that life requires. Volcanic activity associated with plate boundaries brings deep earth materials to the surface, creating fertile soils and mineral deposits. The movement of continents has shaped the evolution of life by creating and destroying land bridges between different regions. When continents drift apart, populations of organisms become isolated and evolve in different directions. When continents collide, previously separated species compete and hybridize, accelerating evolutionary change. Plate tectonics generates Earth's magnetic field by stirring the molten iron in our planet's outer core. This magnetic protection deflects deadly solar radiation and prevents our atmosphere from being stripped away by the solar wind. Mars lacks active plate tectonics and has lost most of its atmosphere to space over billions of years. The recycling of ocean crust also helps maintain the chemical balance of seawater. As oceanic plates plunge into Earth's interior, they carry salt and other dissolved chemicals down with them. Underwater volcanic activity returns these chemicals to the oceans in different proportions, preventing the seas from becoming too salty or chemically imbalanced for life. Plate tectonics even influences weather patterns by changing the arrangement of continents and oceans over geological time. The current configuration of continents allows ocean currents to circulate globally, distributing heat from the equator toward the poles and moderating Earth's climate. The precise rate of plate motion appears calibrated for life. Move too fast, and constant geological upheaval would prevent stable ecosystems from developing. Move too slow, and the recycling system would not maintain atmospheric and oceanic chemistry within habitable ranges. This planetary recycling system represents the 17th great coincidence, enabling life, working in perfect harmony with atmospheric processes that have maintained Earth's habitability for billions of years. For 4.5 billion years, Earth's atmosphere has maintained exactly the right mixture of greenhouse gases to keep our planet warm enough for liquid water, but cool enough to prevent runaway heating. Carbon dioxide, the most important greenhouse gas, has fluctuated dramatically throughout Earth's history. Yet somehow our planet has never experienced the runaway greenhouse effect that turned Venus into a hellish furnace, or the runaway ice age that could have frozen Earth solid like a snowball. During the early days of our solar system, the sun burned 25% dimmer than it does today. This weaker solar output should have frozen Earth's oceans solid, creating a planet-wide ice sheet that would have reflected so much sunlight that Earth could never have warmed up again. Instead, Earth's early atmosphere contained much more carbon dioxide than today, creating stronger greenhouse warming that compensated for the dimmer sun. As the sun gradually brightened over billions of years, atmospheric carbon dioxide levels dropped by almost exactly the right amount to maintain stable temperatures. This perfect balance required incredibly precise timing. If carbon dioxide had decreased too quickly, Earth would have frozen. If it had decreased too slowly, our planet would have overheated like Venus. The mechanism that accomplished this fine-tuning involves the weathering of rocks, which accelerates when temperatures rise and slows when temperatures fall. Warmer temperatures increase rainfall and speed up chemical reactions that dissolve carbon dioxide into rainwater. This carbon dioxide-rich water then reacts with rocks, removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and storing it in limestone and other minerals. When Earth's temperature rises, increased rock weathering pulls more carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, cooling the planet. When temperatures drop, reduced weathering allows volcanic emissions to gradually increase atmospheric carbon dioxide, warming the planet back up. This natural thermostat has operated automatically for billions of years without human intervention. The ice ages of the past 2 million years demonstrate this system in action. During ice ages, so much water froze into continental glaciers that sea levels dropped by over 400 feet, exposing vast areas of continental shelf to weathering. This increased weathering pulled additional carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, helping to maintain the cold conditions. Between ice ages, rising sea levels covered the continental shelves, reducing the amount of rock exposed to weathering. This allowed carbon dioxide levels to rise gradually, eventually triggering the warming that ended each ice age. The cycle repeated with clockwork precision, driven by small changes in Earth's orbit around the Sun. Other greenhouse gases have also remained within narrow limits that maintain habitability. Water vapor, the most abundant greenhouse gas, increases when temperatures rise and decreases when temperatures fall, creating a feedback system that amplifies small temperature changes but prevents them from becoming extreme. Methane, a greenhouse gas 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide, is produced by biological processes and destroyed by chemical reactions in the atmosphere. The balance between methane production and destruction has remained stable enough to prevent either runaway greenhouse heating or the complete loss of this important warming gas. Even the timing of major atmospheric changes appears perfectly coordinated with life's evolution. The Great Oxidation Event occurred when oxygen-producing cyanobacteria had evolved but before complex life that depends on oxygen had developed. This gave Earth time to adjust to the new atmospheric chemistry without causing mass extinctions of oxygen-breathing organisms that did not yet exist. The greenhouse gas balance represents the 18th great coincidence that has maintained Earth's habitability, but the timing of complex life's emergence reveals an even more remarkable aspect of our planet's design. Complex life on Earth evolved during a narrow window of opportunity that is rapidly closing as our sun grows hotter and brighter with each passing million years. Stars like our sun follow a predictable aging process that gradually increases their energy output over billions of years. The sun today burns 10% brighter than when life first appeared on Earth, and it will continue growing brighter until it expands into a red giant star in about 5 billion years, boiling away Earth's oceans and atmosphere. But complex life did not have 5 billion years to evolve. The steady increase in solar brightness means that Earth will become too hot for life much sooner. In approximately 1 billion years, increased solar heating will trigger a runaway greenhouse effect that will vaporize our oceans and strip away our atmosphere, turning Earth into a copy of Venus. This creates a cosmic deadline for evolution. Life had roughly 3.5 billion years from its origin to develop intelligence and technology before Earth becomes uninhabitable. Remarkably, complex life appeared and evolved intelligence almost exactly when it needed to in order to beat this deadline. For the first 2 billion years of Earth's history, life remained microscopic and simple. Bacteria and algae dominated the planet, while more complex cells with nuclei did not appear until about 2 billion years ago. Multicellular organisms with specialized tissues and organs did not evolve until 600 million years ago, using up most of the time available for complex evolution. Animal life exploded in diversity during the Cambrian period, 540 million years ago, developing most of the basic body plans that animals use today. This evolutionary explosion occurred just when Earth's environment became stable enough to support complex ecosystems. But before solar heating made the planet too hot for life, intelligence evolved even more recently, appearing in human ancestors only within the past few million years. Modern humans developed agriculture and technology within the past 10,000 years, an incredibly short time span compared to the billions of years life has existed on Earth. The emergence of intelligence appears to be a rare and difficult evolutionary achievement. Despite billions of years of evolution and countless species, only one lineage on Earth has developed the kind of intelligence capable of understanding the universe and building technology to explore space. This suggests that intelligence might be an extremely unlikely evolutionary outcome that requires very specific conditions to develop. If true, then most planets might never evolve intelligent life, even if they have billions of years available for evolution. The timing becomes even more remarkable when you consider that human intelligence emerged during an ice age, a period of climate instability that created evolutionary pressure for larger brains and better tools. These same climate challenges that drove human evolution are connected to long-term changes in Earth's orbit and atmosphere that will eventually make the planet uninhabitable. Modern humans developed space technology just as Earth entered the final billion years of its habitable lifetime. This timing allows our species to potentially escape to other worlds before Earth becomes too hot for life, but only if we continue advancing technologically at our current pace. The narrow window for complex evolution represents the 19th great coincidence in Earth's history, but the rarity of intelligence raises profound questions about how often life develops awareness anywhere in the universe. In 4 billion years of evolution on Earth, intelligence advanced enough to understand the universe has emerged exactly once, suggesting that consciousness might be the rarest phenomenon in the cosmos. Life appeared on Earth almost as soon as conditions allowed, roughly 3.5 billion years ago. Since then, evolution has produced millions of species with countless different survival strategies, body plans, and ecological adaptations. Yet only one species has developed the cognitive abilities to build telescopes, decode DNA, and contemplate its place in the universe. This suggests that while life might be common throughout the cosmos, intelligence could be extraordinarily rare. Many evolutionary pathways lead to successful survival strategies that do not require large brains or complex reasoning abilities. Bacteria have thrived for billions of years without intelligence. Insects dominate terrestrial ecosystems through instinct and simple behaviors rather than conscious thought. Even among animals with nervous systems, intelligence remains limited to a few lineages. Dolphins, elephants, and some primates show signs of self-awareness and problem-solving abilities, but none have developed language complex enough to accumulate knowledge across generations or technology sophisticated enough to modify their environment significantly. The evolution of human intelligence required an incredibly specific sequence of environmental pressures and genetic changes. Our ancestors lived in African forests that gradually gave way to savannas, forcing them to adapt to life in open grasslands. This transition favored bipedalism, tool use, and social cooperation, all of which contributed to brain development. Climate instability during the ice ages created additional pressure for cognitive advancement. Early humans faced rapidly changing environments that rewarded flexibility, planning, and cultural learning over fixed instinctual responses. Groups that could adapt quickly to new conditions survived, while those locked into rigid behavioral patterns died out. The development of language represented another unlikely breakthrough that separated humans from other intelligent species. Language allows knowledge to accumulate across generations, creating cultural evolution that operates much faster than biological evolution. This cultural acceleration enabled humans to develop agriculture, writing, and eventually science and technology. Even after intelligence emerged, its survival was not guaranteed. Early human populations nearly went extinct multiple times during ice ages and volcanic catastrophes. Genetic evidence suggests that all modern humans descend from a population that may have numbered fewer than 10,000 individuals around 70,000 years ago. The rarity of intelligence on Earth has profound implications for the search for extraterrestrial life. While simple life might exist on many worlds throughout the galaxy, civilizations capable of communication across interstellar distances could be separated by vast distances and enormous spans of time. Consider that human civilization has existed for only about 10,000 years out of Earth's 4.5 billion year history. If intelligence emerges this rarely on other worlds, then the chance of two civilizations existing simultaneously and close enough to communicate becomes vanishingly small. The development of intelligence also appears to require very specific planetary conditions that might be rare in the universe. Earth's stable climate, large moon, protective magnetic field, and position in the galaxy's habitable zone all contributed to creating an environment where intelligence could evolve and survive. The uniqueness of human intelligence on Earth represents the 20th great coincidence in the chain of events that led to conscious awareness, but scientists have developed ways to estimate how often this might occur elsewhere in the universe. Astronomer Frank Drake created an equation in 1961 that attempts to calculate how many communicating civilizations exist in our galaxy, revealing just how many unlikely factors must align for intelligence to emerge. The Drake equation multiplies together 7 different variables: the rate of star formation, the fraction of stars with planets, the number of habitable planets per star system, the fraction that develop life, the fraction that evolve intelligence, the fraction that develop technology, and how long technological civilizations survive. When Drake first proposed his equation, astronomers knew almost nothing about planets around other stars. Today, space telescopes have discovered over 5,000 exoplanets, revealing that planetary systems are common throughout the galaxy. Nearly every star appears to host at least one planet, and many stars have multiple worlds orbiting them. However, finding potentially habitable planets has proven much more challenging. Most discovered exoplanets are gas giants like Jupiter, or rocky worlds that orbit too close to their stars to maintain liquid water. The few Earth-sized planets found in habitable zones often orbit red dwarf stars that bombard them with deadly radiation or gravitationally lock them, so one side always faces the star. Even more restrictive are the requirements for complex life that we have discovered through studying Earth's history. A planet needs not just the right temperature and atmospheric composition, but also plate tectonics, a large moon for stability, a protective magnetic field, a gas giant to shield it from asteroids, and location in a stable region of its galaxy. When astronomers factor in all these requirements, the number of truly Earth-like planets drops dramatically. Some estimates suggest that planets with all the conditions necessary for complex life might be separated by hundreds or thousands of light years, even in a galaxy containing over 100 billion stars. The emergence of life itself remains a complete mystery, despite decades of research. Scientists have never successfully created self-replicating molecules from non-living chemicals, suggesting that the origin of life might be an extremely rare event that occurs on only a tiny fraction of suitable planets. The evolution of intelligence appears even more unlikely based on Earth's history. Complex cells with nuclei took over 2 billion years to evolve from simple bacteria. Multicellular life required another billion years to develop. Intelligence emerged only in the final moments of Earth's biological history and in only one species out of millions. Technological civilization adds another layer of improbability. Human society developed agriculture only 10,000 years ago and industrial technology within the past few centuries. Many factors could have prevented this technological development, from climate catastrophes to asteroid impacts to social collapse. The final variable in the Drake equation asks how long technological civilizations survive before destroying themselves or being destroyed by natural disasters. Human civilization has existed for less than 1/10,000th of Earth's history, and we have already developed weapons capable of ending our species and technologies that could trigger irreversible climate change. Recent calculations using updated values for the Drake equation suggest that Earth might be the only planet in our galaxy currently hosting intelligent life. Even if life is common, the specific sequence of events that led to technological civilization might be so unlikely that it happens fewer than once per galaxy per billion years. This cosmic loneliness might explain why our searches for extraterrestrial intelligence have found only silence despite decades of listening. We might be alone not because life is impossible elsewhere, but because the path from simple life to technological civilization is far more difficult than we initially imagined. The search for cosmic company represents humanity's attempt to understand the 21st great coincidence that created our species. But some scientists propose an even more radical explanation for our apparent uniqueness. The multiverse theory suggests that our universe is just one of countless others, each with different physical laws and constants, making our perfectly life-tuned cosmos an inevitable outcome rather than an impossible coincidence. Imagine an infinite number of universes bubbling into existence, each with randomly assigned values for fundamental forces like gravity, electromagnetism, and nuclear interactions. In most of these universes, the constants would be wrong for matter to form, stable atoms, stars to shine, or chemistry to create complex molecules. Some universes would have gravity so strong that stars would collapse immediately into black holes, never burning long enough to forge heavy elements. Others would have gravity so weak that gas clouds could never condense into stars at all, leaving dark, empty spaces devoid of light and energy. In universes with different electromagnetic forces, atoms might not hold together, or electrons might not bind to nuclei in ways that allow chemical bonding. The periodic table of elements that makes life possible would not exist, replaced by completely different atomic behaviors that could not support complex structures. Nuclear forces tuned to different strengths would prevent the formation of carbon, oxygen, and other elements essential for life. Stars might burn too hot and fast to provide stable energy sources, or they might never ignite nuclear fusion at all, leaving potential planets cold and lifeless. Yet if an infinite number of universes exist with randomly assigned physical constants, then some universes would inevitably have exactly the right values to permit the formation of matter, stars, planets, and life. We find ourselves in one of these rare, life-permitting universes, not because it was designed for us, but because we could not exist anywhere else. This anthropic reasoning explains our cosmic good fortune without requiring a designer or an impossibly lucky accident. The vast majority of universes in the multiverse would be sterile and empty, but intelligent life could only evolve in the tiny fraction of universes with life-permitting physics. The multiverse concept emerges naturally from several areas of modern physics. Cosmic inflation theory suggests that our observable universe is just one bubble in an endless sea of space that underwent explosive expansion after the Big Bang. Each bubble could have different physical laws depending on how quantum fields settled into their final states. String theory, which attempts to unify all forces of nature, predicts an enormous number of possible universes with different configurations of extra dimensions and fundamental particles. The mathematical landscape of string theory contains an estimated 10 to the 500th power different possible universes, far more than needed to make life-permitting universes likely. Quantum mechanics might also generate multiple universes through the many worlds interpretation, where every quantum measurement creates parallel realities containing all possible outcomes. This would produce an infinite branching tree of universes exploring every possible history and future. However, the multiverse theory faces significant challenges. By definition, other universes beyond our own cannot be directly observed or tested, making the theory scientifically unprovable. Critics argue that explanations requiring infinite, unobservable universes are no more satisfying than explanations requiring a cosmic designer. The theory also raises the question of why our universe appears fine-tuned not just for life, but for the specific type of complex, long-lived life that evolved on Earth. Even within the subset of life-permitting universes, most might only support much simpler forms of existence than the rich biosphere we observe. Some scientists propose that the appearance of fine-tuning might have simpler explanations that do not require multiple universes. The fundamental constants might be related to each other through deeper physical laws that require them to have life-permitting values. The multiverse represents one possible solution to the 22nd great coincidence that shaped our existence. But other explanations suggest that our presence in the universe might be more than just a lucky accident. The Anthropic principle suggests that the universe appears fine-tuned for life because only universes capable of producing conscious observers can be observed and questioned by the life within them. This reasoning creates a profound logical loop. We find ourselves in a universe perfectly suited for our existence because we could not exist to make observations in any other type of universe. The question of why our cosmos has life-permitting properties might be meaningless, like asking why water is wet or why triangles have 3 sides. The weak Anthropic principle simply states that we observe the universe to be life-friendly because our existence as observers requires it to be life-friendly. This explains our cosmic good fortune without invoking design or multiple universes. We are here to notice the fine-tuning precisely because the fine-tuning is necessary for us to be here. However, this reasoning leads to puzzling implications about the nature of reality and observation. If conscious observers play a fundamental role in determining which universe we experience, then consciousness itself might be a basic feature of reality rather than just an emergent property of complex matter. The strong Anthropic principle goes further, suggesting that the universe must have properties that allow life to develop because the existence of observers is somehow necessary for reality to exist. This interpretation connects to quantum mechanics, where the act of observation appears to play a crucial role in determining physical outcomes. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest that the universe exists in a superposition of all possible states until conscious observation collapses this superposition into a single observed reality. Under this view, conscious observers do not just passively witness the universe, but actively participate in creating the reality they observe. This observer-dependent reality could explain why the universe appears designed for consciousness. Perhaps universes without observers never fully come into existence, remaining as unrealized possibilities in an infinite quantum superposition. Only universes that develop conscious observers become fully real through the act of observation. The Anthropic principle also raises questions about the future of consciousness in the universe. If observers are necessary for reality to exist, then the eventual heat death of the universe and the extinction of all conscious life would represent not just the end of awareness, but the end of reality itself. Some cosmologists speculate that advanced civilizations might be able to survive the heat death of the universe by finding ways to maintain consciousness, even as stars burn out and space expands into cold darkness. These eternal observers would preserve reality through their continued existence and awareness. The principle becomes even more intriguing when applied to the development of human intelligence. Perhaps the rapid emergence of consciousness on Earth was not just a lucky accident, but a necessary outcome in any universe that supports observers. Intelligence might be an inevitable consequence of physical laws rather than an unlikely evolutionary fluke. Yet, the Anthropic principle struggles to explain why our universe appears optimized not just for any form of consciousness, but for the specific type of complex, scientifically capable intelligence that humans possess. Many simpler forms of awareness might suffice to satisfy the requirement for observers without needing the sophisticated cognitive abilities that allow us to study cosmology. The principle also cannot explain the apparent fine-tuning of many physical constants that seem unnecessary for basic consciousness. Why should the universe be calibrated to produce not just awareness, but also the rich complexity of chemistry, biology, and physics that we observe? Critics argue that anthropic reasoning is circular and unscientific, explaining apparent design by simply asserting that design is required for explanation to be possible. They contend that science should seek causal mechanisms rather than logical necessities based on our existence as observers. The anthropic principle represents one approach to the 23rd great coincidence of conscious awareness, but scientists have proposed even more radical possibilities about the nature of our reality. While Earth's biology depends entirely on carbon chemistry, scientists have identified alternative biochemistries that could support life in environments completely hostile to everything we know as living. Silicon, carbon's closest chemical relative, can form long molecular chains similar to those found in biological polymers. Silicon-based life might thrive in high-temperature environments where carbon molecules would break apart, such as the molten surfaces of planets orbiting close to their stars or the interiors of gas giant atmospheres. However, silicon chemistry faces significant limitations that make it less versatile than carbon. Silicon bonds are weaker and less stable in the presence of water, restricting silicon-based life to dry environments or liquid solvents other than water. Silicon also forms fewer types of stable molecules than carbon, potentially limiting the complexity of silicon-based biochemistry. Ammonia could replace water as the solvent for life in extremely cold environments where water freezes solid. Ammonia remains liquid at temperatures down to -108 degrees Fahrenheit, potentially allowing biochemistry to operate on frozen worlds far from their stars. Titan, Saturn's largest moon, has lakes of liquid methane and ethane where exotic forms of life might have evolved. Some scientists speculate about plasma-based life forms that could exist in the hot atmospheres of stars or in the magnetic fields of gas giant planets. These plasma creatures would be composed of organized patterns of charged particles rather than traditional matter, possibly achieving complexity through electromagnetic interactions rather than chemical bonds. Crystalline life represents another possibility, where information could be stored and processed in the atomic structure of minerals rather than in organic molecules. Such life forms might operate on geological timescales, thinking and reproducing over millions of years while appearing completely inert to carbon-based observers. Quantum life could potentially exist as stable patterns of quantum entanglement, storing information and processing it through quantum mechanical effects rather than chemical reactions. These quantum organisms might inhabit the vacuum of space itself, invisible to conventional matter, but capable of sophisticated information processing. Machine life offers yet another alternative, where artificial intelligence could evolve and reproduce independently of biological origins. Advanced civilizations might create self-replicating machines that eventually develop their own form of consciousness and begin their own evolutionary journey toward complexity. Even within carbon-based chemistry, alternative biochemistries might use different genetic codes, proteins with non-standard amino acids, or completely different approaches to metabolism and reproduction. Earth's biology represents just one possible solution to the challenge of organizing matter into self-replicating, evolving systems. The search for alternative biochemistries drives the exploration of extreme environments on Earth, where life has been discovered thriving in conditions that were once thought impossible. Organisms live in boiling water, acids strong enough to dissolve metal, salt concentrations that would kill most life, and deep underground rock formations with no access to sunlight. These extremophiles demonstrate that life is far more adaptable than scientists previously imagined, suggesting that alien life might exist in environments completely unlike Earth's. The discovery of life in Earth's most hostile environments has expanded the definition of habitable zones around other stars to include previously excluded possibilities. However, alternative biochemistries would still need to solve the same fundamental challenges that carbon-based life faces: how to store and process information, how to extract energy from the environment, and how to reproduce with sufficient accuracy to maintain complex organization while allowing enough variation to enable evolution. The study of alternative life possibilities represents humanity's attempt to understand whether the 24th great coincidence of carbon-based biochemistry is truly necessary for complexity, or whether other solutions might exist throughout the universe. Yet, some scientists propose that our entire reality, including all possible forms of life, might exist within an even more extraordinary framework than we have yet imagined. The simulation hypothesis proposes that our entire universe, including Earth, life, and human consciousness, exists as a computer program running on technology built by an advanced civilization we cannot imagine. Philosopher Nick Bostrom argued that if civilizations can develop computing power sufficient to run detailed simulations of conscious beings, they would likely create many such simulations for research, entertainment, or other purposes. This means simulated conscious beings would vastly outnumber naturally evolved ones, making it statistically likely that any given conscious observer, including you, exists within a simulation. The rapid advancement of computer technology on Earth provides a glimpse of how such simulations might become possible. Video games already create increasingly realistic virtual worlds populated by artificial intelligence characters. Virtual reality systems can fool human senses into experiencing completely fabricated environments. If computational power continues growing exponentially, future civilizations might develop computers capable of simulating entire universes down to the quantum level. These simulated universes could contain billions of simulated planets, with simulated life forms that experience consciousness identical to naturally evolved beings. The simulated beings would have no way to detect that their reality is artificial, unless their simulators choose to reveal this information. The laws of physics, chemistry, and biology within the simulation would be perfectly consistent because they would be programmed to follow specific rules, creating the appearance of a naturally occurring universe. This possibility could explain the apparent fine-tuning of physical constants for life. If our universe is a simulation, its parameters were deliberately set by programmers who wanted to create interesting phenomena like stars, planets, and living organisms. The fine-tuning is not a coincidence, but an intentional design choice by our simulators. The simulation hypothesis also offers explanations for puzzling features of quantum mechanics, where particles seem to exist in multiple states simultaneously until observed. This behavior resembles how computer programs might conserve processing power by calculating detailed states only when they are being measured or observed. Some scientists have proposed experiments to test whether we live in a simulation. They suggest looking for pixelation or computational shortcuts that might appear at the smallest scales of space and time. similar to how computer graphics break down when examined too closely. However, testing the simulation hypothesis faces fundamental limitations. Sophisticated simulators would likely design their virtual universe to be indistinguishable from reality, including any tests that simulated beings might devise to detect the simulation. Any evidence of artificial reality could be programmed to disappear when searched for. The hypothesis also raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness and identity. If your thoughts, memories, and experiences are patterns of information in a computer program, are you any less real than a naturally evolved human? Would simulated consciousness be identical to biological consciousness, or just a convincing imitation? If we exist in a simulation, this would make our reality no less meaningful or important to us as conscious beings experiencing it. Love, suffering, discovery, and creativity would remain genuine experiences regardless of whether they occur in biological brains or computer programs. The possibility that we are simulated beings created by advanced programmers represents the ultimate expression of the design hypothesis, suggesting that not just life, but all of reality might be the product of intentional creation by intelligence, far beyond our current understanding. Yet even if we are simulated beings, our existence within the program would still represent an extraordinary achievement in creating conscious, curious entities capable of contemplating their own existence and seeking to understand the nature of reality. The simulation hypothesis represents one final perspective on the 25th great coincidence of conscious existence. But regardless of whether our reality is natural or artificial, our presence in this universe creates opportunities and responsibilities that extend far beyond Earth. Whether Earth was designed by cosmic accident, divine intention, or advanced programmers, humanity now faces the profound responsibility of carrying consciousness and life beyond our home planet before it becomes uninhabitable. The perfect conditions that created and sustained life on Earth are temporary. In approximately 1 billion years, increasing solar brightness will trigger runaway greenhouse heating that will boil away our oceans and strip away our atmosphere. Long before that deadline, climate changes, asteroid impacts, or other catastrophes could end human civilization and all Earth-based life. This cosmic time limit transforms space exploration from an interesting option into a survival imperative. Humanity must develop the technology to establish self-sustaining colonies on other worlds within the relatively brief window of opportunity that remains before Earth becomes uninhabitable. The search for habitable exoplanets has revealed that Earth-like worlds are extraordinarily rare in our galaxy. Most planets are gas giants, frozen ice balls, or scorched rocks orbiting too close to their stars. The few potentially habitable worlds discovered so far are dozens or hundreds of light years away, requiring revolutionary advances in propulsion technology to reach them. However, humans might not need perfect Earth clones to establish thriving civilizations among the stars. Advances in genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and life support systems could allow our species to adapt to a wide variety of planetary environments that would be lethal to unmodified humans. Mars represents humanity's most accessible stepping stone to becoming a multiplanetary species. Despite its thin atmosphere and freezing temperatures, Mars has water ice, carbon dioxide, and mineral resources that could support human colonies using advanced technology. Early Mars settlements would depend entirely on Earth for survival, but they could eventually develop into self-sufficient civilizations. The asteroid belt contains vast quantities of rare metals and other resources that could fuel an expansion throughout the solar system. Space-based industries could harvest these materials to build massive, rotating habitats that provide Earth-like environments without requiring habitable planets. Generational ships could carry human populations to nearby star systems, over voyages lasting centuries or millennia. These moving worlds would need to maintain complex ecosystems and stable societies across dozens of generations representing an unprecedented challenge in engineering and social organization. Advanced artificial intelligence might play crucial roles in humanity's cosmic expansion, serving as explorers, terraformers, and guardians of human knowledge and culture. AI systems could survive conditions that would kill biological organisms and operate across the vast timescales required for interstellar colonization. The development of consciousness uploading technology could allow human minds to exist independently of biological bodies, enabling forms of space travel and planetary colonization impossible for flesh and blood humans. Digital consciousness could journey between stars at the speed of light and inhabit artificial bodies designed for specific environments. Yet expanding beyond Earth creates new responsibilities for humanity as possibly the only known intelligent species in the galaxy. We might be the universe's only representatives of consciousness, capable of understanding natural laws, creating art and culture, and experiencing wonder at the cosmos. If we are indeed alone or nearly alone in the galaxy, then humanity's survival and expansion could determine whether intelligence and awareness persist in this region of the universe. Our choices over the next few centuries might decide whether consciousness spreads among the stars or vanishes forever when Earth becomes uninhabitable. The 26 great coincidences that led to your existence have created a species capable of understanding its place in the cosmos and taking action to preserve consciousness beyond its planet of origin. Whether this represents the fulfillment of a cosmic design or the ultimate achievement of natural processes, humanity now carries the extraordinary privilege and responsibility of becoming gardeners of consciousness among the stars. Your existence in this perfectly tuned universe is not just a cosmic accident to be grateful for, but a call to action to ensure that the spark of awareness that began on Earth continues to shine throughout the galaxy for billions of years to come.